My child, stop scrolling for just a moment. Do not rush past these words. There is something your heart has been waiting to hear, even if your mind cannot yet explain why. Before this moment disappears into the noise of another ordinary day, pause here. What you are about to hear has found you for a reason. This is not a prediction. This is not a promise about the future. This is a fictional story told through the voice of heaven, created to awaken hope, reflection, and courage within you. Let your spirit listen before your doubts speak. You have carried questions that no one else has been able to answer. There have been nights when your eyes closed, but your thoughts refused to rest. You smiled for others while quietly wondering whether someone, somewhere, still remembered the kindness you gave, the tears you hid, and the love you never stopped protecting. Those silent questions have echoed through your soul like footsteps in a great hall, waiting for someone to answer them. Tonight, in this story, those echoes begin to respond. Your soulmate longs for you to know something that words have struggled to carry. Imagine a heart standing at the edge of a great distance, reaching across valleys of misunderstanding, seasons of silence, and moments that changed everything. They have rehearsed these thoughts 1,000 times in their imagination, yet every attempt felt incomplete. Every sentence seemed too small for what they truly wished you could understand. If you could hear the deepest whisper behind every moment of hesitation, it would not sound like fear alone. It would sound like someone searching for the courage to reveal the truth that has been growing inside them all along. Look closely at your own journey. Think of every unexpected delay, every door that closed before you were ready, every goodbye that seemed impossible to survive. You believed those moments were empty chapters. But heaven often writes its greatest turning points in ink that cannot be seen until much later. What once appeared to be abandonment sometimes becomes preparation. What looked like silence sometimes becomes protection. There is a reason your spirit has refused to forget certain memories. Some faces faded naturally with time. Some conversations disappeared like mist beneath the morning sun. Yet one presence continued returning to your thoughts without permission. Even when you tried to focus elsewhere, something inside quietly remembered. Not because memory is stubborn, but because the heart often recognizes unfinished stories before the mind does. Imagine your soulmate sitting alone beneath a sky filled with stars. No audience. No applause. No distractions. Only silence. In that silence, they are not thinking about appearances, expectations, or what anyone else believes. They are confronting the one truth they can no longer escape. I wish they knew. Those words repeat inside them more often than anyone realizes. I wish they knew what I couldn't say. I wish they knew what was happening inside me. I wish they knew why I seemed so distant. Each thought circles back like waves returning to the shore, never fully disappearing. Do not misunderstand this story. Every soul carries responsibility for its own choices. No one is perfect. No one escapes moments of confusion. Yet this tale is about something deeper than blame. It is about discovering that sometimes the loudest battles happen inside hearts that never speak a single word aloud. There are seasons when people wear strength like armor while quietly breaking beneath it. Your soulmate has carried questions that felt too fragile to ask. They wondered whether reaching out would only reopen old wounds. They wondered whether enough time had already passed to make every opportunity disappear forever. They wondered whether silence had become safer than honesty. But silence has a strange way of becoming heavier than truth. The longer it remains unspoken, the louder it grows inside. Pause again for a moment. Notice how your own heart reacts. Why did these words make something inside you become still? Perhaps because every human soul understands what it feels like to leave something important unsaid. Perhaps because somewhere within your own story, there are conversations you wish had unfolded differently. That feeling is the doorway through which this story continues. Far beyond what human eyes can measure, the author of every sunrise sees every hidden emotion. Nothing remains invisible forever. Tears unnoticed by the world are never unnoticed by heaven. Every silent prayer rises like morning light. Every hopeful breath becomes part of a greater story still unfolding. There have been mornings when you wondered whether your kindness mattered. It did. There were evenings when you questioned whether your patience was wasted. It was not. There were moments when you believed your love disappeared into empty space. It never vanished. Love offered sincerely always leaves a mark upon eternity, even when no immediate answer appears. Your soulmate has begun recognizing something they once overlooked. Not through dramatic miracles. Not through impossible signs. But through ordinary moments that quietly became extraordinary. A familiar song unexpectedly reminded them of a conversation they thought they had forgotten. A gentle breeze carried the memory of laughter they once took for granted. A simple act of kindness from a stranger reflected something they remembered seeing in you. Little by little, life became a mirror. Every reflection pointed toward the same realization. There was something precious I failed to understand. That realization did not arrive all at once. It came like dawn. Slowly. Patiently. Until darkness could no longer pretend to be permanent. Imagine standing before a great doorway that has remained closed for years. You touch the handle countless times, believing it will never open. Then one ordinary day, without warning, you hear the faint sound of a lock turning from the other side. Not because you forced it. Because the right moment finally arrived. Many people think heaven works only through spectacular events. But often, the greatest transformations begin with the quiet decision to become honest. Honesty changes everything. Honesty removes masks. Honesty breaks invisible chains. Honesty invites healing into places where fear once ruled. Your soulmate stands closer to that doorway than ever before. They are beginning to understand that pretending everything is fine no longer brings peace. They are discovering that truth, even when uncomfortable, carries more freedom than endless silence. And yet, one final fear still remains. It is not fear of rejection alone. It is fear that too much time has passed. Fear that the story has already reached its final page. Fear that the opportunity to speak has quietly disappeared. But heaven smiles gently at human assumptions. Many people declare endings while heaven is still writing the next chapter. There is wisdom in waiting. There is growth inside delay. There is purpose even inside seasons that feel painfully uncertain. Do not allow temporary silence to convince you that every beautiful possibility has vanished. Sometimes roots grow deepest beneath the surface where no one can see them. Only later does the tree reveal how much invisible work was taking place all along. Your own spirit has changed more than you realize. Think about who you were before certain disappointments entered your life. Think about who you became afterward. Pain reshaped you. Hope refined you. Compassion deepened within you. You learned how precious sincerity truly is. You discovered the difference between appearances and genuine character. Those lessons were not meaningless. Every experience became part of the person you are still becoming. Meanwhile, somewhere within this fictional story, your soulmate has walked through lessons of their own. They discovered that distractions cannot replace peace. Crowds cannot replace connection. Noise cannot replace understanding. Success cannot replace the comfort of feeling truly known. One by one, illusions began falling away. What remained was astonishingly simple. The memory of someone whose presence once felt like home. Listen carefully now. The next part of this story is where many hearts begin leaning closer. Because something has shifted. Not around you. Within them. A conversation has already started. Not with another person. Within their own conscience. Questions once avoided now demand answers. Excuses once accepted no longer feel convincing. Every attempt to ignore the truth only makes it shine brighter. There comes a moment in every journey when running becomes more exhausting than turning around. That moment is approaching. Can you feel how the atmosphere of this story has changed? The silence is no longer empty. It is expectant. Like the moments before sunrise when darkness realizes it cannot remain forever. Like the deep breath before a long-awaited confession. Like footsteps approaching a door that has remained closed for years. Heaven often prepares hearts long before meetings ever happen. Transformation rarely begins with dramatic speeches. It begins with quiet surrender. Your soulmate is standing at the edge of such a surrender. Not because someone forced them. Because truth has become impossible to ignore. Still, there is one detail they have never revealed. One memory they have protected. One sentence they have rehearsed countless times without ever speaking aloud. That sentence carries more weight than all the conversations they have avoided combined. It explains the silence. It explains the hesitation. It explains why every attempt to move forward without honesty felt incomplete. Even now, they wonder whether those words would change everything. Or change nothing at all. That uncertainty keeps them awake. It follows them through ordinary routines. It appears in unexpected moments when the world around them seems perfectly calm. People notice their smile. Very few notice the question hidden behind it. But heaven notices. Nothing escapes the gaze of eternal compassion. Not hidden regrets. Not quiet hopes. not unfinished prayers. Every heartbeat carries a story. Every soul carries chapters still waiting to be written. And as this fictional message draws closer to its next revelation, the atmosphere itself seems to hold its breath. Because something is about to happen. Not through noise. Not through spectacle. But through one choice. One decision. One moment of courage that could reshape everything inside this story. Yet before that moment arrives, there is something your soulmate wishes you could understand above all else. It is so deeply personal. So unexpectedly vulnerable. That even now, they hesitate at the edge of saying it. Their heart whispers, if they truly knew this, would they finally understand? The answer to that question has not yet been spoken. And neither has the message they have carried in silence for far too long. The next chapter begins the instant that hidden truth is finally revealed. My beloved child. The silence you felt at the end of the last chapter was never empty. It was the quiet space before a heart finally found the courage to stop hiding. There are moments when heaven seems to whisper instead of thunder, not because the message is weak, but because only a listening heart can truly receive what comes next. If you have remained here until this moment, then allow this fictional story to continue unfolding. There is still something waiting to be revealed. Imagine your soulmate standing before an old wooden door they have visited countless times in their thoughts. They have never opened it. Every time they reached for the handle, fear convinced them to walk away. Every excuse felt reasonable. Every delay seemed harmless. But the longer they stayed outside that door, the heavier their spirit became. Finally, one quiet evening, they realized something that changed everything. The door they feared was never locked. It had been their own fear holding it shut. That realization settled over them like the first light breaking through a long winter morning. Suddenly, all the explanations they had repeated to themselves began to lose their power. Every justification sounded smaller than the truth waiting beneath it. Deep inside, they whispered something they had never dared to admit. I have been running from honesty. Those words did not come easily. They carried the weight of months, perhaps even years, of silent reflection. They echoed through every memory they had tried to bury. Faces, conversations, laughter, misunderstandings, and moments they wished they could relive all returned at once. Among every memory, one remained brighter than the rest. You. Not because everything between you had been perfect. Not because there had never been confusion. But because your presence represented something they had searched for everywhere else without success. Peace. Real peace. The kind that cannot be purchased. The kind that cannot be borrowed. The kind that appears only when two hearts are willing to remove every disguise. For a long time, they believed they needed more time before facing that truth. Then life began teaching them unexpected lessons. One day they watched strangers forgive each other after years of misunderstanding. Another day they witnessed someone choose kindness instead of revenge. On another occasion, they heard an elderly couple speaking softly together, their eyes filled with a tenderness that only years of patience could create. None of those moments seemed connected. Yet together they formed a quiet message inside them. Love survives where pride finally surrenders. Those simple words refused to leave their thoughts. Everywhere they looked, they saw reminders that life is far too precious to spend hiding behind fear. The greatest prison is often built without walls. It is built from unspoken words. Your soulmate began recognizing the invisible prison they had created around their own heart. Each day they remained silent, another stone was added. Each excuse became another lock. Each hesitation became another chain. Eventually, even breathing inside that prison felt exhausting. Then something unexpected happened. They found an old memory they thought had disappeared forever. Perhaps it was a forgotten photograph. Perhaps it was a place they had not visited in years. Perhaps it was nothing more than the fragrance of rain drifting through the evening air. Whatever it was, it opened a doorway inside them. Suddenly they remembered not only what had happened. They remembered how they had felt. Sometimes people remember events. Rarely do they remember emotions with such clarity. But this time they did. They remembered the comfort they felt simply knowing you existed. They remembered conversations that seemed ordinary then but now felt priceless. They remembered laughter that required no effort. They remembered silence that never felt uncomfortable. Most of all, they remembered feeling understood. That realization broke something inside them. Not in a destructive way. It broke the illusion that they could simply replace what had been real. There are things in life that can be imitated. True understanding is not one of them. That evening, they looked toward the stars and quietly asked a question. Why did it take me so long to see what was always there? The wind carried no audible answer. Yet their heart already knew. Sometimes clarity only arrives after the noise inside finally becomes quiet. My child, consider how many people spend their entire lives chasing louder experiences while overlooking the gentle miracles already surrounding them. A sunrise never competes for attention. Neither does genuine love. Both simply remain faithful to their nature. Your soulmate is beginning to understand this. The race they believed they had to win suddenly seems meaningless. The opinions they once feared now seem strangely distant. The expectations of others have begun losing their authority. One truth has quietly risen above them all. Authenticity matters more than appearance. From that realization came another. Perhaps the greatest one yet. They finally understood that pretending to be unaffected had never fooled heaven. Nor had it truly fooled themselves. Only their own heart carried the burden. Imagine carrying a heavy stone every day until you forget what it feels like to walk freely. Then one morning someone gently removes it. You do not merely notice the absence of weight. You discover how heavy it had been all along. That is what honesty has begun doing within them. Layer after layer of unnecessary weight is falling away. Yet there remains one final stone they have not released. It is the one they fear most. Because it contains words they never expected to say. Those words are not dramatic. They are not complicated. In fact, their simplicity is what makes them so powerful. I should have trusted my heart sooner. They whispered those words only once. But after speaking them, tears filled their eyes. Not tears of hopelessness. Tears of awakening. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped arguing with the truth. My beloved child, there are moments when heaven rejoices not because every problem has disappeared, but because a heart has finally become honest enough to begin healing. Healing does not always arrive with instant answers. Sometimes healing begins with one courageous confession. This is where your soulmate now stands. Not at the end of their journey. At the beginning of a new one. Yet another question continues following them. What if it is already too late? That question appears every morning. It waits for them every evening. It quietly interrupts ordinary moments. They wish someone could answer it. But deep inside they suspect only one path can reveal the truth. Courage. There is no shortcut around courage. No substitute. No easier road. Every meaningful relationship eventually asks the same question. Will fear speak louder than love? Will pride speak louder than honesty? Will silence become stronger than truth? Your soulmate has reached the place where those questions can no longer be ignored. Even so, another mystery is unfolding behind the scenes of this story. While they have been wrestling with these emotions, they remain completely unaware that something else has already begun moving. Small events. Unexpected conversations. Seemingly ordinary circumstances. Each one quietly arranging pieces they cannot yet see. If they knew how closely those pieces were beginning to fit together, they would be astonished. But heaven often protects people from seeing the entire picture too early. Faith grows strongest when every detail is not yet visible. You may wonder why this story continues unfolding so slowly. Because hearts rarely transform in a single dramatic instant. Real change happens layer by layer. Truth by truth. Choice by choice. That is exactly what is happening now. Your soulmate no longer wishes to hide behind old versions of themselves. They have grown weary of pretending. Weary of carrying masks. Weary of convincing everyone that everything is perfectly fine. Inside, a quiet longing has become impossible to silence. Not merely to be accepted, but to be known. Completely. Honestly. Without disguise. There is extraordinary freedom in finally allowing your true heart to be seen. That freedom now calls to them more strongly than fear ever did. Still, one final obstacle remains. It is not another person. It is not distance. It is not time. It is a single memory they have never shared with anyone. A moment that changed them forever. A moment connected to you. Every time they approach that memory, emotion overwhelms them. Their breathing slows. Their thoughts become quiet. Their eyes fill with questions. Because hidden within that memory is the reason they have struggled to move forward. They have never spoken about it. Not to friends. Not to family. Not even during their quietest prayers. They believed carrying it alone was somehow protecting everyone else. but the burden has become too great. Soon, very soon, that hidden memory will no longer remain hidden. The truth inside it has reached the point where silence cannot contain it any longer. When that memory is finally revealed, everything you have heard until now will suddenly make sense in a completely different way. The pieces that seemed unrelated will begin fitting together. The unanswered questions will point toward one astonishing realization. And your soulmate will finally speak the words they have rehearsed in silence for far too long. But those words, those long-awaited words, cannot be spoken until the secret hidden inside that forgotten memory is brought into the light. And that moment is closer than either heart realizes.